Welcome to Food Shrinks.
Hey friends, Molly here. If you are loving Food Shrinks, we need your help. Can you just subscribe to Food Shrinks in the Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you're listening to? And if you have an extra 20 to 30 seconds, could you just rate and review us? Because we need people to know we're around, because the more, the merrier, and we want to survive and thrive here at Food Shrinks. Thank you. What are we talking
Awesome.
about today, girlies?
Okay, well, I thought it might be interesting because something that's been coming up in group lately is a lot of people have been saying, they just don't feel the motivation to do the recovery thing. So,
Mm.
how do they do the recovery things when they don't feel the motivation, even though they logically know they need to, but they feel like my food is boring, I have no interest in meetings, like everything just feels like too much.
Wait, can I tell you? So wait, listener, I on our lives, this is like I was like, oh, what are we talking about today? And then I was like, wait, don't tell me it. Let it be a surprise. I swear on my life, in my membership group, this was the video I just did. It must be in the ether
Okay,
about
tell
how
us
to stay
more.
motivated in the long term. That was literally the video this week. I mean, this month.
Very
It's
cool.
meant to be.
Definitely
Also,
meant to be.
like, it must just be such a chronic. I wonder if there's a piece too, because, like, just sort of, well, you guys know this better than me, but like that willpower idea. I wonder if we are just so tired as an
Mhm.
earth, as a universe right now, as an earth right now, that it's like the energy it feels like it takes to do recovery might just not be there the way it was maybe in, say, 2019 or something.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because that's exactly, what even for some of the people who are been in like 2 or 3 years, they're like, I know what to do, but I just feel like I've just kind of hit this wall and it's taking too much to get to do it.
Yeah, my momentum group is all people that have, they certainly have a year of recovery, if not more. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about it is that people who like have the thing are like, this feels like a sludge,
Mhm.
this feels like a sludge. And like, I don't know if I kind of agree. I feel that way about my recovery right now too. You're not alone, peeps. It just
Yeah.
kind of feels like unimportant, exhausting, the whole thing, right? I mean, do you guys feel that personally at all? Or are you guys just like, woo, recovery, yippee, let's do this?
Just doing that this morning. Woo!
Or you're just like, can't let me rent some, let me sign my food to someone. Let me play
Yeah.
my food out. This is so
Yeah.
exciting. Yes.
What are those affirmations I love?
Mhm. I mean, it does feel that way right now.
Right, it just feels like every time I pick up my phone, if the TV goes on, like I am just waiting for bad news. It's like always something. And at least also here where I am, we just got like 10 more centimeters of snow.
Mhm.
And
I saw that on your Instagram. That's so funny. I saw that snow on your Instagram and I was like, ugh.
I know. It's like this is supposed to be spring. It's like, and you're right. It's like all like everything environmental, social, political. Like it just feels like that recovery stuff. I could still certainly do the thing, but I understand that like our nervous systems are just spent.
Yeah, it's sort of where I would imagine like the efforts are coming in for people right now. Like, like, oh God, or like the worst, at least for me, like it's not that big of a deal. Like I can not meditate this afternoon. What's the big deal? I can have a little bit extra of this. What's the big deal? Because I think globally it really does feel like a small deal. But I know for me personally, I bet there's going to be a tipping point where this will become a big deal.
Exactly.
Interestingly, I'm actually incredibly well researched on this topic, given that I just did a video on it. And one of the things that struck to me, which is obvious, but whatever, but like it's sort of aligning your recovery to your long-term values. Like, I think what
Mhm.
I am working on with getting the motivation back is, or just getting the motivation to back to its normal level is like my outlook is better when my recovery is sort of intact in the best way possible. So I'm a better therapist and I'm a better coach and I'm a better friend. And I don't know about you guys, but with these small percentages that I turn away from it, I don't really notice it in the small, but then 1% becomes 2%. And then I'm like 100 degrees away from where I want to be. And like, listen, like like I can always get it back. I mean, our first episode, what, like 5 months ago, like I was just coming back and I don't really want to do that. But I mean, I think they both make sense. And so I'm starting to try to think about it with like, if it's a crappy time, do I want a crappy time with my recovery strong, or do I want a crappy time with
Right.
my recovery turning into recurrence? And I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I guess
Yes.
I've kind of framed it as motivation collapse or functional freeze. I mean, I think is kind of like the term that I've
You like
used
define
with
that
people.
for the non-scientists like me?
Yeah.
With that phrase, I would be like, what is that? Did you make that up? And then I know you're going to be like, no, Molly.
No. I mean, I think motivation collapse is just, I think it's just a good term to kind of describe what you guys are describing, we're experiencing in group, or maybe even personally, where it's just like you feel like you're lazy, you feel like you're broken, but really it's just a sign that like something underneath needs attention, right? So then we think about functional freeze, where it's just like, feeling like everything is hard, and if I push too hard this way or push too hard that way, these negative consequences are going to happen. So I just kind of stay in this like tiny little window of tolerance, and that window of tolerance is really squished, right? And if it skews outside of that tiny window of tolerance, then things feel really big, or I'm really shut down. And so it's exactly like Clarissa said, it's like knowing logically what we need to do, or quote, should do. I really don't like that word because it's so shaming, but it's like knowing that, but then still having an emotional or even energetic kind of like block to be able to do it. So it feels like you're running through quicksand or something, or trying to run through quicksand. So it's like numb, or you might feel flat, or maybe you feel like you have mental fog, or you feel really disconnected from things, right? Like dissociation really shows up in that depersonalization, derealization kind of stuff. Like maybe we're apathetic, maybe we're bored. Or like even that inner ambivalence. I want this, I don't want this at the same time.
Is it like, is the solution to it in nervous system regulation primarily? Like, is it to work on the nervous system?
I think, I don't know. I can't answer that specifically if that's the primary thing, but I think lots of factors go into it. So I think we have to address it in multifaceted ways. I think nervous system exhaustion or whatever is part of the I guess like cause behind it. But I also think there's like that over reliance on willpower, like you were saying, Molly, like instead of like saying, like sticking to like those routines that we have, we're like, we're just going to white knuckle it through it. Or instead of reaching out, we're like, I'll just keep it to myself and I'll get through it. And I don't want anybody to know that I'm struggling, that kind of thing. But I also think like addressing that ambivalence, that maybe like just acknowledging like, I know I need to do this. I know I need to take this medicine, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's gross and I hate it and it's hard and all of those things. And like, are we talking about the grief that's involved in recovery, even when we're years in? Like you're constantly shedding and transforming and becoming a newer version of you. And I think that we just don't address that enough. And then you couple that with the chaos and the craziness of life and the world and whatever. And I mean, it just makes sense that we're just kind of all like, mother of God.
Yeah. And recovery is exhausting, right? And so to
Well, it
have,
can be. I mean, there's times where it's amazing, but it sure can be. Sure can
but
be.
it's a lot of work for sure. It's for a lot of us, it's a lot of work. And what happens then, I think, is a lot of what Molly was saying is we start to think like, I should be doing this and I'm not. So then my inner critic is getting louder, and that actually is inhibiting my motivation because I'm kind of shaming myself. And so when you said, is nervous system regulation helpful? Yes. And
Yeah.
that's self-compassion, right? To name it and say, oh, of course, this is so hard right now with everything that's going on. That's certainly going to help. And then I love what you said about the values is, if you are not tied in to your values, then recovery could be short lasting for you, because if it's about the weight, if it's about, a lot of other superficial things, you're not going to be in it for the long run. And we've done a lot of groups on values. How do we clarify our values and like in the different areas of our life for that reason, because it's the thing that will keep you going. So that's one of usually the practice I say, like, when was the last time you explored your values and then looked at, what am I doing today that makes me move towards those values? And what are those things that I'm doing that maybe moves away from those values, and helping to identify some of that.
MP, like, I think this thing about grief is really hitting me a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the whole thing too. Like when we're not willing to accept, this is like from radical acceptance, like when we're not willing to accept something, which would be recovery or what it takes or whatever, like we're usually avoiding like deep grief. And I just wonder, listener, like if you're like in recovery, it's so funny. I just had this client and I was like, I want you to write like a letter to the cake and the cookies because we're deciding to put them down, and sit there and thank them, for what they did for you. And she was like, I don't think that they did anything for me. I was like, oh, I'm so glad you have a week for this assignment, because like they, they did so much. Like, whoa, okay, well, we're at the end of the session, like whatever, and I guess when you were saying that, I guess I was also just having this thought, like in these kind of turbulent times, it does kind of stink if you're committed to recovery in its own way, like
nothing to cope with it,
nothing
right?
to numb the F out, it's like, talk about life on life. No, I don't think when we signed up for life on life's terms, we necessarily signed up for this.
We meant this.
Yeah, well, because I think, and we've talked about this before, I think, right? When like we can visualize, substance use disorder, whatever, we can visualize it as like the Lamborghini, the flashy car, the fast, the whatever. And then we think about like recovery can be, the beetle bug or the whatever, like the less cool car. And how do you sell the less cool car when you have these two things available to you? Well, and all kinds of things available to you, but you're being presented these two options. It is going to be a harder sell to sell the recovery than it is to sell the substance use disorder, because the substance use disorder, right, the addiction is flashy and fun and whatever. And we're not thinking about in the long run when we wrap it around a tree or run it through a guardrail, right? When we go off the rails and now something has to change, otherwise we will die if we haven't. Where recovery is, it's a slow start sometimes, and maybe sometimes you have to push it and you have to have friends come jump it and you've got to like get it towed and whatever, like it takes a while, but once it's running and going there, the joy, the fun of it is later on down the road. And we have this story because society tells us this story. If you just would stop drinking, if you would just stop eating the cake, if you would just stop smoking those cigarettes, everything would be better.
I just think though right now, with recovery, it's like in DBT, we just talk about sometimes distress tolerance is like not making a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure right now. It's like, it's fast riding in my like beetle bug with the top down. I think.
Yeah, wind in your hair.
Like, I don't even know what to say, right? Like, it's just good to have a car. And,
yeah.
Marsha Linehan, who created DBT, one of her famous lines, which I think is important in what we're talking about, which is how, at least what I'm talking about in my own recovery right now, which is how not to make things worse. Cause I just came off of recurrence this summer. And I really don't want to be back there. But Marsha says, motivation is going to wax and wane. That motivation is like the weather, to be honest. And like the Canadian weather right now, it's just really snowy and gross, but it will be sun, right? So we don't need to commit to our level of motivation. What she says is motivation waxes and wanes, but commitment needs to be permanent, right? And so
Right.
we can, and I think is a little bit of what we're saying. Like right now, I'm doing recovery, like, ugh, this thing again, but the sun's going to shine again. I have certainty around that. And when the sun shines, I want it to be easy for me to be like, I'm doing my minimum requirement right now, and I want it to be easy for me to level up when I'm feeling when the sun's shining again. And I actually love that the most, that we don't take it so personally that we're unmotivated right now. We don't take it so morally
Yeah.
if we're unmotivated right now, because it's just a weather pattern and it'll pass if we don't make it worse, if we don't burn it down.
Yeah.
Right. And that just acknowledging it is probably what takes the most courage of all.
Right? Am I the only one in the squares that's like, ugh, should I come to your group? Like, should I be in your group? Like,
I mean, I go to my
No,
group
it's-
multiple times a week. I love it. You're welcome to, you're welcome
No,
to
but
come back.
I like totally feel it too. I totally feel it too. You know, before I would have said, oh, it has just a lot to do with other stressors that were in my life that were going on. But a lot of those two major stressors, you know, we're kind of almost through them. And it's still you know.
Yeah. I
Just
like to
also
think of it as
say
like a
that,
pause or a treading water, like you can't
Yeah.
always be on this upward trajectory, especially because we are so like prone to moving those goalposts. Like you are never going to quote be successful because you're always moving those goalposts. Like you meet that goal and then you're like, well, gotta do something more. So like at some point, the universe, your nervous system, whatever, is going to like smack you up alongside the head and say, take a pause.
that's the trap. That's actually in my
Yeah.
video. It's like that it's like if it's a destination trap.
Yeah.
Destination trap is a motivation killer.
Yeah.
If we're
Right.
just doing this to feel better, get to this next thing, that's like perfectionism. Like that's really going to get you. Can we just say
Right.
I just want to say something a little bit spiritual because
Yeah.
like I'm me,
Mhm.
but I would link people who struggle with compulsive overeating, food addiction, emotional eating. I would put them on a trajectory of highly sensitive people, maybe even empaths. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we see that a
And
lot.
what I
Definitely.
would just want to say to those, our beauties, my beauties, our besties, is like, I think it's highly likely also, and I think this about myself in an enormous way, that I'm holding more than I should. Pardon my, we're holding a lot, even if it's not intentional.
Yeah.
We're holding, I'm a big thinker, I'm a big feeler. I read 10 minutes of news every day and I'm impacted. And I smell the air and I know what's going on in the world. And I know there's great suffering and I know there's great fear. And like that just can feel heavy to people like us. Because that's what one of my teachers always says. She's like, sometimes the anxiety isn't even yours. And so
Right.
I just wonder too, if we're really impacted, just try it on. Just try. I know, your weird shaman friend, here I am. But like, also maybe it's ours as the maybe it's not yours, but it's yours as a collective.
Yes.
And in that way, it's a little more negotiable,
Yeah.
that heaviness.
No, it's so true because I don't watch the news at all. And I expose myself to it never. And I can tell you 3 times in 3 different situations today, just about in the world where people told me, the stock market crashed and they lost money. Like that's not my stuff.
Feel that.
But
We're
absolutely.
big feelers. It's our superpower, but right now it's troubling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like to, I think I like to remind people like you're treading water. Like you were saying, Molly, I love that where you're just like, I want to be in this place where I'm not making it worse. So when the sunshine does come, I can like get out there and be in it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's about a recalibration, it's like you're in this space of, it's like all the work that you just did has to integrate. Like there has to be time. Even your computer has to update, shut down, restart. Your phone has to do that. Thinking about technology, why do you think you would not have to have that? And it's going to, like you said, come in waves. And I think it's just like that feeling of like allow without judgment, just noticing what's the need? What is this telling me? If I just sit with it for a little while, does it shift? All of that.
Right.
I think like,
And also,
yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and also know that when we're in it, it feels like it's never going to end, but it always
Yeah.
does.
But that's the
Right?
part with what Marsha Linehan says, right? That's why we need some kind of distress tolerance skills, because we don't want to make a
Yeah,
semi-permanent decision on a completely temporary situation.
exactly. I love that.
Definitely.
You just nailed it.
Thanks, Queen.
And like that,
I also got therapy, so I'm winning food drinks today. Thanks for the therapy.
well, we love getting your emails. We love hearing what you have to say about the show. We love getting your questions, comments, suggestions, all the things. So be sure to email us at asktheshrinks@foodshrinks.com.
We'll see
Love
you
you
next week.
guys. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.